I do remember that first night when we went and shot. It was one of the most surreal experiences of my life, and I say that in part because I'm a native New Yorker, and I had never seen my city shut down so completely.
I remember Edo said, "Well, what's my character? I mean, can you tell me anything else?" And I had to say, "Look, I don't have any story. We don't have any sound. We're just going to shoot the footage, and if it looks good, I'll start thinking up a story when I get back tonight." And that's what we did.
Richard actually gathered everybody together, producer, actors, and me as a cinematographer, to go down there and just shoot where there was a little bit of light, or maybe like in total darkness as well. I like it that people, they still were interacting to each other, but they were actually in dark places.
What was unique about the dark side is this event suddenly happened, and Richard wanted to take the backdrop of the hurricane and the aftermath of Sandy, but weave in a narrative with actors. Part of the way he sometimes likes to work is to sort of improvise based on an idea, knowing a little bit about what will happen, but also leaving it open to improvisation and the things that you find. We'd shoot some scenes that were written, but we would also take the actors to Breezy Point, the burned out areas, the beaches where the houses had been destroyed by the flooding, improvise the narrative within that setting. So it was both a narrative and a documentary.
After filming in the East Village, when it was all dark, in the next following days, I realized that I had a film I wanted to make, so that I would need to get more involved with what was happening in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. So we drove out to Queens and began to volunteer, and I met firefighters in Breezy Point, again, completely by chance, and was immediately struck that this was an incredible story, and if I could, I wanted to work with them further.
You got a call at 6 o'clock from FDNY that said every truck in Rockaway is leaving. You're on your own.
We had to live with the firefighters in a way that we had to go down there and see them and interact with them, and not being like, as a film crew.
Am I an actor in this scene, or am I just me, Allie, listening to these amazing, horrible, terrifying stories?
There we were, this kind of small film crew coming out, and they'd had a lot of news crews and TV crews out to talk to them. And I think there was some wariness of anybody coming out with a camera. But because our intentions were very different from any news crew or news organization, I think they really welcomed us. And I remember they just wanted to talk and talk.
And we were filming in their firehouse where most of them were sleeping.
And the stories of things on fire and things exploding around them and the water rising and just this almost sort of Armageddon, hellish chaos that was happening.
There's a house behind this one that he went up to us and he said, the woman that lives there, her husband died in 9/11. If you could do anything to save that house. And we went over there, and the house behind it and next to it was on fire, and we put those out and actually saved that house. The siding was all melted. It was about to go any minute.
I remember being very moved by their vulnerability, their generosity.
So we don't have any books left over, babe.
The books was the loss. The books was the loss, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Meeting the firefighters made me go deeper into the documentary dimension of the story.
I went to explore all houses that were destroyed. And we were with firefighters, and that was actually something that, I don't know, I felt, secure. I felt like, I was safe.
Il baseball non fa parte della mia testa, no, ma del mio cuore.
Che bello.
There's nothing quite like making love in a garbage disposal site. It's really one of the more erotic experiences a person can ever have.
5-7 meters of trash from the hurricane, and these birds just hovering around, and it was dusk, like we were catching that scene at the end of the day.
Questo è difficile. Ho rotto il mio fianco.
No.
Sì, giocando a bridge. Sì, giocando a
You
bridge.
can't create those situations. They just, the kind of the beauty and how horribly ugly it is. These mountains of people's belongings now kind of tidied up into these piles in a parking lot. And it's really sad and beautiful at the same time. And we're also not really supposed to be there.
Suddenly there was like a garbage truck coming towards us, and we had to really ration it. And I like the fact that nobody, especially Richard, he did not go in panic. So we were like just going with the flow. And that was actually really good, I think, for us as a relationship DP and director, but also for the actors, that they really felt a little bit more secure, but in the same time, they didn't feel like, the heaviness of the situation. We were shooting inside, but from the outside, we could see what was going on. And there was all like, the garbage, it was all like, the truck coming in and out. And we really had to leave all like, the scenario. But inside, there were these two actors that they were actually like, they just had sex.
So after we had an early cut of the film, I decided I would show it to the firefighters who had volunteered to be in our film. And I figured they'd find it to be too French, and that would be it. But I felt I owed them the opportunity to see it. But lo and behold, they actually liked the film. Not only did they like it, but they said they had a friend who had shot footage during the fire, and I absolutely had to see him.
This is midway through Gotham Walk.
Breezy Point during the hurricane. No FDMY, no volunteers for well over an hour.
His footage was extraordinary, and it really made an incredible contribution to the dark side.
Richard was actually going through the locations and through the ruins. And then he was actually like, choosing the right spot where to shoot it. And we would see like, all the burned houses, the garbage and everything, like the ruins. That process, I think it was very intimate, but in the same time, it was not really an easy one because everything was really destroyed.
The dark side really shows a clash between the worlds of romantic comedy and the worlds of documentary. The rules of a romantic comedy are very strict in a sense and leave out so much in order to intensify the atmosphere, the limits, which are so dynamic and fruitful in a romantic comedy. And then beside it, something which is really not comic at all, and which, of course, many people suffered greatly from. But to put these two together, again, seemed to me evocative of the time we live in, when we are constantly, particularly through the internet, cheek and jowl with elements of comedy, elements of distraction, and immeasurably tragic events happening around the world. So to make a film that actually clashed them together, inspired in a way by the hurricane, which breaks down the limits of the city. It breaks down the limits that separate one group from another in their daily lives in a city like New York, and makes them mix together. I wanted to do the same thing, to mix these genres, to give the viewer an experience which would allow them to find new meanings, rather than to have the usual expectations that one has from either a documentary or a fiction film. To have these two worlds within one film would be a little bit troubling, would be a little bit like a grain of sand that makes you think, while at the same time having a kind of pleasure of watching a film. And I think that's what we set out to do.